that's not being used. Oh, and here's another one that's not on patrol. Yep, that one's a little bit older and didn't have a marking. Oh, and here we go. Here's one over here as well. So 3 vehicles, and I'll bet if I went to the back, I'd find some more. And this is what I'm talking about. This is what a do-nothing police department does, and I mean nothing, for sure. I mean, have 2 of their vehicles marked. I mean, that's pathetic. More than half the city's budget, by Mayor Swift's admission, goes to the police department, and yet this is what we get for our money. You blame anybody for wanting a refund? Now we'll just sit back and see what happens at this do-nothing department. And I'm going to guess for about the next 2 hours, it's probably going to be just that. But I want to show everyone what exactly goes on in this city. And if they try to stop me, they're going to have some real problems on their hands. Because legally, they cannot. Now, what happened earlier is, from the other video, once that's uploaded, what Dispatcher Lear was referring to is he sent officers out, but I told him I wanted them to talk to Dan. They did not. They refused to do so because, frankly, Officer Garcia and Officer Lane don't know what they're doing. Officer Lane was the one that shined the light in the door of my house trying to find my address. So how competent can you figure she is? And I believe it is her. She didn't deny it when I confronted her with it earlier this morning. So we're going to find out just what all is happening here. And like I said, it's going to be a whole bunch of nothing. And as you saw in the previous video, Mayor Swift's office wasn't even open yet, which is just pathetic. The City Hall opens at 8 o'clock, and yet none of the departments were open. I expect the rec department to not necessarily be open, because there's not a whole lot that happens there, but certainly Mayor Swift's office ought to have been. And as you clearly saw, it wasn't. So, go figure. Go figure. Just to recap, everyone, I'm sitting here in front of the police department. I'm going to be here for about the next 2 hours, and we're going to monitor what all happens with this police department. As you saw earlier, there were 3 vehicles that are just sitting here. They're not on patrol. They're not doing anything. And that's about par for the course for this department. And this being, as Mayor Swift puts it, the very hard-working police department. You know, they work hard on harassing me and not doing their job. It's ridiculous. For those of you just joining us, I'm sitting here in front of the police department. I'm going to be here for about the next 2 hours, and you're going to see clearly what all is going on. And just so you know, to capture something on the other side, there's a whole bunch of nothing going on there. There are currently 3 police vehicles that are sitting there not doing anything. Nobody has gone in or come out, which, you know, for this being the city it is, I expect that. Basically, it just shows how they have plenty of time on their hands and do a whole bunch of nothing but sitting. Now, granted, if there was nothing to be done, that's fine, but if nothing else, they ought to be patrolling. I do wholeheartedly agree with those who have mentioned that and who have stated that. Excuse me for the camera being a little bit shaky. I was just switching hands. For those of you who have just joined us, I'm sitting here in front of the police department. I'm going to be monitoring their activities for about the next 2 hours. I've already panned over to the other side, and I started on that side, and there were 3 patrol vehicles, or 3 police vehicles. They're just sitting there, unoccupied and unused. Very interesting. I suspect there will be a whole bunch of nothing that goes on. There's not a ton that happens here, but everybody's just so busy when it comes to Mr. Calipari. I think this is going to be proof positive of how busy they aren't. I don't care if they notice or not. They don't do their jobs anyway when it comes to me, Wyatt. So it doesn't really matter. I'm sure that somebody's already made them aware, but they're big on not doing their job. And besides that, after the comment that their dispatcher made to me over the phone, I really don't give a crap about their opinion of much anything because the lieutenant is not there, their chief isn't there. Mainly, I would say because this is the day before a holiday. And like I was saying at the start of the video, when I went inside of City Hall, Mayor Swift's, well, not just his office, but none of it, his, the city manager, or any of it was open as of yet. And yet City Hall opens at 8 a.m. Eastern time. So you make of that what you will. I certainly have my opinion on it. For those of you just joining us, I am in front of the Riverview Police Department, as you can see. I'm going to be here for about the next 2 hours, and I'm going to show you all the wonderfulness that doesn't happen in this city. Now, mind you, the police department is highly praised by Mayor Swift and certainly by its chief for all that it does. But all it does basically is nothing outside of 2 lieutenants and a couple of officers when they're, I won't say when they're pressed to do it, but I have to kind of cajole one of them for sure to do his job. So, but outside of those 4, the other 17, it's kind of suspect a little bit. Save for one that works at nights, and you know what? I'm going to exclude Lieutenant Manderick too, or Mandernick as well, because he does a pretty good job. So I'll exclude 6 of them, and if I think anybody else, then I'll make them exceptions to that rule as well. But you know, you're still talking about a full 70% of the department that doesn't do anything, including Chief Allen. It's just sad. It's really, really sad. So, and again, I'm going to pan over to the other side. Sorry for jerking the phone a bit. You can see there's nothing going on there either. So, and I will do that from time to time. If there's any action, I certainly will make sure I capture it for all of you. For those of you who just joined us, I am sitting here in front of the Riverview Police Department, and I will be here for about the next hour and 45 minutes. I thought I would bring you some live action at a random time just to show you what all doesn't happen, because they're so busy, and Sergeant Tome, who's in charge, is busy patrolling supposedly. Now, albeit he may very well be patrolling, but I think that was started just as an excuse so he didn't have to talk to me, and because he knew I would video him. So apparently Dispatcher Lear is the one in charge to take the brunt of the videoing today, and he'd already made a comment about my mental health on the phone, which he didn't dare repeat in front of me earlier. And yet he judges me, and he wants to tell me to find Jesus. I think maybe he needs to find Jesus more, because I don't go around judging people. Obviously, it's the police department in this city that do. And I'm going to pan to the other side once again to show you how much nothing there is going on. Not one vehicle has moved. There are currently 3 police vehicles there. So again, they're so busy, probably sitting back with their feet on their desk. Oh, here we go. We got a vehicle coming in with a trailer. This ought to be interesting. Or is he just circling around? Oh, it's a city worker, okay. I don't know if you can see it. I'll move up to my rear view mirror there. You can see what I'm looking at there. So for those of you just joining us, I am sitting here in front of the Riverview Police Department. This is due to what happened earlier when a couple officers were sent against my wishes to my house, and then proceeded not to do anything but pretty much harass me. Officer Garcia was one of them. He was wearing sunglasses, and I wish I would have recorded it for all of you, but he didn't want to show me his eyes yet. As soon as he left my porch when he was walking in the sun, he did, and he talked about how sunny it was in the shade. Obviously, that was just a pure cowardly act on his part. And Officer Lane, I believe she's the one that shined the flashlight through the window of my house and said she was looking for my address on September 13th, 2020. So, it's just all ridiculous. And then you had Dispatcher Lear, who is the older gentleman that's in the video, that wanted to make a comment about my mental health, and yet he didn't have the balls to say it on video. Surprise, surprise by that. It just shows how cowardly certain members of the police department are. Now, I will say this. Lieutenant Bemis, will say on camera what he says to me in person. I don't always like what he says. I don't always agree with it, but I do have to give it to Lieutenant Bemis. He does, and Lieutenant Merritt's the same way. I would say Officer Lewis and Officer Jackson are as well. Officer Lewis is the one, if you look at the video, where I talked about Mr. Calipori stabbing my detergent bottle. He's tall and has dark hair. Officer Jackson's a little... he's not as tall as Officer Lewis, I believe, but he's got some pretty good size arms, and his arms were really massive the last time I saw him. I don't think I could beat him in arm wrestling with 2 arms to his 1 now, for sure, but the 4 of them are fine. And Lieutenant Manderneck is fine too. It's some of these other ones that are just really, really questionable. And it's kind of interesting that Sergeant Tome would avoid me, but I'm not surprised by this because he knows he's going to have to face me in court in about 10 days. Excuse me while I get some water, everyone. But, and I'm going to pan over to this side. There's nothing that's going on over here either. You still have the 3 police vehicles that are over here, and not one has left. Sergeant Tome's still on patrol. It's a very lengthy patrol, but eventually, you know what? He's going to have to return. I do know that. So, and the city workers have since taken off. So I'm going to switch hands. So forgive me. There. All right, that's not comfortable. I'll have to switch back. In any event, and also for those who missed that, I had some video earlier as part of this video where I went over to City Hall. I started out here, and then I went over to City Hall. Mayor's office wasn't open. His confidential secretary was not there, as I was going to leave a message about all this with the dispatcher. And the dispatcher, who was the older gentleman that's in the video earlier that was sitting there, he wanted to make a comment about my mental health on the phone, but he wouldn't make it on video. And that is not a surprise to me. But yet, he talks about Jesus, and yet he wants to judge. And he couldn't say anything about that when I confronted him on it. Excuse me, everyone. The perils of drinking water on live video, I would say. Or one of them anyway. But we're not going to experience the other one at all. If I have anything to say about it. For those of you who just joined us, I'm sitting here in front of the police department where I'll be for about the next hour and 40 minutes. I'm waiting to see if anybody's going to come out or if anything's going to happen, see if they're going to do their job. Not in regards to me, because there is nothing they can do about this, but I just want you to see how little they actually do. Granted, there's not a lot that happens here, so I'm not blaming them, but they have time that they could have talked to Mr. Calipari, and this is my point of this video. And what happened with that, for those of you who weren't here, is his wife, very early this morning when I was moving stuff into my backyard, pretty much sicked her dogs on me through the fence, and she's got to learn to control her animals the same as he does, but they just let them growl and bark and all that stuff and don't do anything about it. So, and if the police department wants to have tension about it, then they're going to have tension about it. But it's going to be very interesting in about 10 days when Sergeant Tome has to face me in court. It's going to be very interesting because he's going to have to pretty much admit to ducking and dodging me. And this day may be very, very telling when it comes to stuff. So we'll see. But this is what happens when you don't have the chief or a top lieutenant in. The police department gets particularly out of control, and particularly near the holidays. My apologies, I had to set my water back down. And then I'm going to pan over to this side once again. Still, not one vehicle's moved, not one person's come out. If somebody does come out, I'll let you know. But I suspect that won't be the case unless there is a severe emergency, which there could be. I mean, you never know, but it's going to be interesting to see. Thank you, Alexander. I like it. I've already been inside, but I don't need their dispatcher judging me. So that's why I'm sitting outside of the department. I have no problem with recording inside. It's just that's not going to be productive because the police department has decided that, and maybe you need to get a job, Lucas. I have one, thank you. But as I was saying, Anonymous, I understand that they don't stop me from recording. They can't, and they know they can't. Otherwise, I would have a lawsuit on my hands, and they know it too, because there's already a YouTube video from, I believe, 2015 where somebody tried that, and they were pretty much bullied right out of the department at that time. So, well, like I said, it's just not going to be productive right now because the chief of police is not here. The top lieutenant's not here. So you just have a bunch of flunkies like Officer Garcia and Officer Lane. And I've already commented on what they've done, or more to the point, what they haven't done. I mean, Officer Garcia can't even look me in the eye because he's got his shades on. I mean, he's a piece of crap officer is what he is. And I've said that pretty much to his face, if not use those exact words. So that's why. But if you look at my other videos, there are plenty of videos where I've gone inside the police department, including within the last couple of months, and I've confronted any number of officers and lieutenants. I'm not afraid to confront anybody. I just wish I would have had it to where the chief, before the city council meeting on May 6th, got in my face and then he yelled at me. And that was a setup by Mayor Swift. I know it because he hasn't come close to talking to me since. And he knows if he does again, I'm sitting there with my phone in my hand ready to record him in case that happens again. That's going to make for some excellent footage if it does. And I've already contacted him to let him know that I'm not happy with this stuff. And if he's got a problem with me, he's welcome on my property as long as he drops his badge and gun first. I mean, it's just that plain and simple. I'm not afraid to take him on. But I also said if he did that, he wouldn't be much of a man because he's a pretty strong guy for his age, which he's about my age. But, you know, I mean, if that's what he has to do to get his point as chief of police, that's really sad. So that's what I'm going to say about that. For those of you who are just joining us, I am sitting here in front of the police station, or in front of the police department, if you will. Nothing has happened so far. I'll be here for about the next hour and 35 minutes. But again, I'm going to pan over. There has been no activity whatsoever with the doors I've been showing you or on this side. And supposedly Sergeant Tome, who's in charge today, has been patrolling. And when I say that, that would be with my fingers in quotes, because if he is, yeah, I mean, he may be, but it'll be interesting to see, you know, all the criminals he nails and that, which this time of day, I doubt there's, you know, much in the way of criminal activity in this city. This is a pretty good city normally. It's just that you got to have law enforcement that's under control. And when you have a dispatcher like Dispatcher Lear, who is the older gentleman that you have seen in my videos, who wanted to start making a comment about my mental health, yet he refused to do it on video and played, whatever it was, like he was stupid, which he isn't. You know, he knew he didn't want to go on video to say it. But yet he talks about Jesus and he wants to talk about that, yet he wants to judge me, but yet he forgot in the Bible apparently where it says, "Judge not lest ye be judged." So, and I don't go around judging people. It's people who judge me. And this was all instigated by him sending Officer Garcia and Officer Lane to my house. And again, Officer Garcia had his sunglasses on. He's had a very poor history with me. He wouldn't take them off and look me in the eye. And he was claiming because of the sunlight, yet he was standing very much in the shade of my porch. And Officer Lane's the one that shined the flashlight in my house because supposedly she was looking for the address and she couldn't find it. So, you know, I mean, this is an example of the great police officers we have, and actually, what's really sad is Officer Garcia actually won an award for something I don't even think it was a few years ago. I think it was last year for something. But all he is he's an discriminatory jerk, and he doesn't have the balls to really face me. He doesn't. He just wants to be a putz, frankly. Or he certainly acts like one, so, yeah. I mean, it is what it is. And yes, that's a judgment on my part, but it's more of an observation than anything. And it's an assessment based on my experience. And certainly it's not a judgment on my part. It's very much fact that he's discriminatory. Case in point was a few years ago, he came to my house and got on me about the way my vehicle was parked and said it was parked illegally, and yet any number of people have parked that same way, including Mr. Calipari, as you've seen, and he hasn't done anything to them. So if that isn't the very basis of discrimination, I don't know what is. So, but this is the way this police department is. So, you know, it is what it is. But you know, they're going to have to deal with me, and that's what there is to that, for sure. For those of you just joining me, or joining us, I should say, I am in front of the Riverview Police Department, and I'm going to be here for the next about an hour and a half or so now. I'm going to be showing you all the activity that goes on, or doesn't. I mean, so far there hasn't been that much, spoiler alert, but I didn't expect there to be, but that is the point. They could be talking to Mr. Calipari and telling him to watch it with his dogs and everything else, but you know, they choose to pick fights with me rather than solve problems. And of course it starts with their chief, who before the May 6th city council meeting, I wish I would have gotten a recording of it, though I didn't know he was going to do it. He got in my face and then he proceeded to yell at me in front of a bunch of people, and he got away with it. And this is the chief of police of this city we're talking about. Not very professional, but he knew after that not to confront me, and I pretty much gave him an open invitation to show up to my house because of this and drop his badge and gun prior to, and we can settle like men. But I also told him if he did, it wouldn't mean he was much of a man as far as I'm concerned. But it'd be interesting to see, because, I mean, he'd do a lot of damage, but I'd get my licks in to be sure. And hopefully he's not that kind of person, but, you know, when you're under the influence of Mayor Andrew Myron Swift, who knows? Mayor Swift is not a good leader. Well, actually, he's not really any kind of leader for this city, and he's certainly not a good influence for this city. Well, Nicholas, if you'd been here at the beginning, and if you stick around for the recap, I'll tell you what this is about, as I've been recapping to others. And as far as I'm concerned, I haven't seen anybody else have trouble with this. I don't believe it's very hard to understand at all. But I suppose it depends on your mindset. For those of you just joining us, I am sitting here in front of the Riverview Police Station, and I'm going to pan over. As you can see, nothing's happened on this side, and this is where the three patrol vehicles are. Normally there are 4 there, but I would say Sergeant Tome is still quote-unquote patrolling. And he's making a very lengthy patrol because, as I mentioned, Dispatcher O'Lear, who is the older gentleman that you've seen in the videos, and you will see in this one as well, I'm sure he left so he wouldn't get videoed by me, because he doesn't want, nor does he like, the video sessions, because he's starting to become recorded pretty often, and sooner or later I think he's going to be one of the most, if not the most recorded officer on here, but I think Lieutenant Brown is probably going to surpass him at the rate he's going. But anyway, I will be here for about the next hour and a half or so, and you're going to see what all is going on or not with this department, and I'm going to err on the not side. And this is why I say they could have easily have talked to Mr. Calipari, but as I mentioned, Officers Garcia and Lane came to talk to me and refused to talk to Mr. Calipari, and absolutely didn't when his wife about sicked his dogs on me through the fence. So next time, I won't call the police. I'll just call the ASPCA and the Humane Society, and I'll mention it to them, and they can go have a talk with them. I don't need to involve the police department with that. If the police won't do their job, then that's proof positive what I'm saying about how they don't do anything. And they can call me all the names they want to, but my statements still hold true. So that should answer your question now, Nicholas. And I do recap every so often. I didn't just recap for you. Well, if you look at the first part of the video, once this gets uploaded, I actually did go inside and I confronted Dispatcher Lear because I was looking for Sergeant Tome. But Sergeant Tome wasn't there because as I have said, I imagine he is out on quote-unquote patrol, but don't know what all he patrolling, but he's probably just going to stay out there long enough so he doesn't have to get videoed by me, I would say. So that, and then I went over to City Hall because I was going to confront, or not confront, I was going to mention to Mayor Swift's confidential secretary all of this and to give them a heads up, but that office was closed, and pretty much every office was closed within City Hall, even though City Hall opens at 8 a.m. I didn't expect the rec department to be open necessarily, and probably the city clerk's office. And when I was in the parking lot, I believe I did see the city clerk in there, but still. I mean, if you're going to serve a city, you need to serve the city. And if you're going to have hours like you have, you need to stick to those hours. And granted, it's the day before a holiday, but, you know, there's some doings going on right now. So I believe now that will catch you up. And whatever I didn't mention is in the first part of what will be this video once it gets uploaded, which will take a while because this is going to be a lengthy video. I surmise it will take several hours to upload. If it's anything short of that, it's a small miracle. This by far will be the longest video I've ever done. We're already actually into, we're not into record territory yet because last year I did a video involving my now former neighbors, James Carey and Laura Lee Barton, which lasted for roughly, I think it was 52 or 53 minutes. And it was interesting with the police in that one too, because when I was recording them from my porch, they actually were revving their vehicle, well, not revving their vehicles, they had their vehicles turned on just to burn gas, but more to the point to try to drown out what I was recording. And my mistake in that is I ought to have walked all the way to my sidewalk instead of standing there on my porch. And if they ever do that again in a similar situation, that's exactly what I'm going to do. Because as I get more comfortable with recording, especially the police department, I'm going to care less about what they do to me because I'm just waiting for them to cross the line. And they're going to cross the line with me one of these days. It's not a question of if, it's a question of when and how. And if the how doesn't kill me, then I would say I will have a lawsuit on my hands, for sure. For those of you just joining us, I am sitting here in front of the Riverview Police Station. I am monitoring the activity. I'm going to pan over once again. There's been no activity here whatsoever, which does not surprise me. There are still 3 patrol vehicles sitting there in the lot, with the 4th one, I'm assuming, belonging to Sergeant Tome, who is still out, quote-unquote, patrolling all the rampant crime that's in this city. And I say that because last year, I believe it was, there were 1,186 crimes, and I believe only 30 35 of them or 36 of them were felonies, something like that. So again, pretty good city to live in terms of that, but a really lousy city to live in if you want a good or decent police department. We don't comment on anybody in this chat, period, Matt. Not like that, we don't. You want to say something positive about somebody, great. But all this negativity, that's part of the problem with the city of Riverview, is all the negativity, because they would rather get into insults and demoralizing things than to do anything about solving problems. And part of this video, Nicholas, is to help solve the problems that exist in the city. And if nothing else, I am certainly bringing attention to the public about this. And here we go. Now we got somebody pulling up next to me. Well, this will be interesting to find out what this is about. Like I said, every so often there's somebody that goes inside of it, but that's the other reason, Anonymous, I'm not inside of it, because it would be unfair for me to monitor other people, to be sure. Because there was one video I actually deleted that was totally somebody else's business, and it's not my business to discuss other people's business when it's not related to me. And that's why I try to keep it to anything that's related to me, or if it's an event like Summerfest or the like, to the city. The 100th anniversary celebration would be another example of it. But there's some videos, I mean, very rarely do I delete a video that I record for this channel, but in that instance, it was the right thing to do, for sure. Now it'll get to be interesting to see what happens from here. For those of you just joining us, I am in front of the Riverview Police Department. There's actually one person that went in, which is the only activity that's happened so far. I'm going to pan over once again. You can see there are still 3 patrol vehicles out there. Sergeant Tome either has returned and is hiding, or he has not returned. He is still on quote-unquote patrol. Apparently he's not in the mood to be videoed today. And again, Lieutenant Bemis is still not around, presumably because he's on vacation, and Chief Allen certainly is on vacation as well. So, and not surprisingly with tomorrow being a holiday, but you know, it doesn't lead to anything productive, especially when you have a dispatcher that wants to make judgments about you and make comments about your mental health, and he sends officers that you didn't request. Much less the 2 officers he sent, those being Officer Garcia and Lane, not doing anything. Again, not surprising, because Officer Garcia discriminates, and he had his sunglasses on and talked about how sunny it was in the shade of my porch because he didn't have the guts to look me in the eye. And Officer Lane's the one that shined her flashlight into the window of my house, claiming to try to find my address. And she didn't deny that when I confronted her with it. And the only thing I wish I would have recorded them. But I did not think it was them, actually. They can rest assured if they ever show up to my house again, I'll record them the first time and every time going forward. At that particular moment, I don't know, it was bad on my part. I ought to have. It would have been interesting, to be sure. But you never know with this police department. Oh, you got somebody else that's coming in now. Oh, this ought to be interesting. Now we're going to have two people in there at the same time. Here's somebody pulled up in a white truck who's going in through the back. Apparently he's got something to do with the police department, but I don't recognize him. Oh, he's coming in through the other side. Okay, I'll edit that. A little weird, I would say, but I've never seen anybody enter the police department the long way like that before. Might be somebody who's not familiar with these parts. So as you see, there is some activity here. This is a little bit surprising to me, but I didn't know what to expect today. And to recap everybody, I am in front of the Riverview Police Station because earlier today, Dispatcher Lear decided it'd be a good time while Lieutenant Mimas is not around and while Chief Allen's on vacation to call me a particular name and to talk about Jesus. But one thing he forgot about is he forgot about judge not lest ye be judged. And he judged me. And yet when I confronted him on video, he refused to do anything, or not do anything. He refused to repeat his comment, is what it was. And I then had to tell him about my email to Chief Allen about sending officers to my house. But then again, I didn't ask him to send officers to my house. I asked him to send officers to Mr. Calipori's house because Mr. Calipori had his neighbors, he had his dogs essentially attacking me through the fence. So, I mean, if the police department wants to pull this crap here, I mean, hey, you can play their games all they want to. I will play mine for sure. And now we have another vehicle that's about ready to pull in as this one takes off. So the activity's starting to pick up. So obviously I'm not the only one that, in need of police services. But, we'll see how all this transpires, to be sure. Once again, I am sitting here in front of the Riverview Police Department. Don't get too close to my vehicle, dude. As I was saying, I'm sitting here in front of the Riverview Police Department. I'm monitoring the activity. And as you can see, there's still nothing on that side. There was a gentleman that went the long way there, but there were 3 patrol vehicles, and there still are 3 patrol vehicles there with presumably Sergeant Tome out on quote-unquote patrol. But more to the point, he's just ducking and dodging me today. I guess he doesn't feel like being videoed. And that's fine, because as I stated, the next time that the Caliporis sit their dogs upon me, I'm calling the ESPC and the Humane Society. And I'm going to anticipate them having their dogs taken away from them, because frankly, they're abusive owners, as far as I'm concerned. We don't make comments like that, Tyrone. Keep your comments respectful, or you're going to be removed from the channel. And Matt, we don't make comments like that either. If you have a reasonable question to ask, you ask it, but you don't make comments like that. And I'm not making a lawsuit out of everything. They are. That's what you're not realizing. Maybe you ought to watch more of my videos and more of them in its entirety and really listen to what's being said before you start making comments like that. And no, Tyrone, I don't break the law in order to prove my point. I don't need to do that. I'll leave that to the police department to not do their job and break the law themselves, frankly, in certain situations. Sorry, Tyrone. You make too many negative comments, and we don't talk like that on this channel. That's the whole point. I'm not here to incite violence. I'm here to try to prevent it. There's already enough problems with this city without more people inciting violence. And that's the point that's missed, and missed often, unfortunately. And whatever that truck was, they left, so that's particularly good. Excuse me just a second, everybody. Yeah, it's definitely time for some more water. I may have to change bottles here shortly. Okay, for those of you who just joined us, I'm in front of the police station where I'll be for about the next hour and 10 minutes. There have been a couple people to go inside. You see a gentleman walking out now. Apparently each of them came out with a sheet of paper in their hand, so I'm assuming they went to get a report. I'm going to pan over as soon as this gentleman has cleared the pathway, since he's taking the long way around. But this all has to do with what started this morning when the older gentleman that's sitting there, Dispatcher O'Lear, sent officers Lane and Garcia to my house without saying anything to me or even asking me, frankly. And yet he wants to talk about Jesus and the like. But he then proceeded to make a comment about my mental health that he refused to repeat in front of the video. So, very, very interesting. And as a result of it, I left a message for his chief, who's on vacation. And I said to him, anytime he wants to come on my property, just drop his badge and gun, and he and I can settle it, if that's what he really wants it to come down to. So, anyway, I'm going to pan this side. And you can see there are still three patrol vehicles there. I wasn't able to capture the third one really that time because of the truck that's to my left, but it's there. And supposedly Lieutenant Tone, or I'm sorry, not Lieutenant, he's not a lieutenant yet. Sergeant Tone is out on quote-unquote patrol. So. maybe you need to stop judging and get a clue. And if you listen to any part of this video prior to, especially what I just said, you'd know the answer to the question you just asked. Well, sometimes it would behoove you to listen before you speak. Just my word of advice for you going forward. And you can think about that for the next 24 hours. As I was saying, the dispatcher made a judgmental comment about me, and then I confronted him, and he refused to repeat his comment. As far as I know, Sergeant Tom, as I stated, is still quote unquote out on patrol. But very much he could be hiding inside of the police station, and that's fine. He can hide there all day, as far as I'm concerned. It just proves my point about this police department for sure. We don't diagnose people on this channel, and if you're a doctor, then make an official diagnosis, but otherwise, you need to stop with your negative comments. That's part of why this channel was created, because of negative comments. And I do have a job, and I would say, you know what, you need to get a job. Yeah, whatever. I'm a loser with 350 plus, or 390 subscribers, so you know, you can hate all you want to. People hate Taylor Swift, and we know how popular she is, so, yeah. Now, what's so funny now, CK? I don't see you saying anything. Did you get sent to your corner because you couldn't behave properly? Yeah, that's what I thought. Kids need not come on this channel, but those who wish to learn, especially about the police department in this city, are welcome to do so. But in deference to Mayor Swift, I'm going to borrow one of his phrases. You do need to keep your comments respectful. But unlike Mayor Swift, any disrespectful comments, whether directed towards me or the police department, and I've already done both, I will remove you, and I will remove your comments. So please don't make comments like that. It's unproductive, and it's certainly unwarranted. Now, granted, I mean, I understand the hate towards the police department, but unless you live in this city, you really aren't in a position to hate the police department too much. Or unless you've already lived in this city, I understand that as well. But just really something. For those of you just joining us, I am in front of the police department, where I'll be for roughly just over the next hour. I'm going to pan to my left once again. You can see there are still the 3 patrol vehicles still there. None have returned, none have left. So that says something for sure. But in any event, this all started this morning because of Mr. Calipari, well, Mr. Calipari's dogs, but his wife essentially did not control them, and had the fence not been there, they would have been attacking me, and it would have been a really horrible incident. In light of Sergeant Tome, who's in charge today, and I quote-unquote in charge anyway, currently he's on patrol, apparently. Either that, or I believe he's hiding out in the police station, one or the other. But I guess he wasn't in the mood to be videoed by me, probably because he has to face me in court in about 10 days, and he's going to have to explain his actions, and he still will anyway. But in any event, excuse me for just a moment, I need some water. In any event, I threatened to call the ASPCA and the Humane Society if something wasn't done about this, and with it not being done, I went and confronted Dispatcher O'Lear, who was the older gentleman you will see in the videos. And I told them, or I told him, and pretty much dared him to repeat his comment that he mentioned to me on the phone about my mental health, and he refused to do this. And here comes this guy back again. He either forgot something or something's going on, but in any event, so that's how this came about. I also went over to City Hall before I started recording today, and Mayor Swift's office was closed, and that would also not only be his office, that would be city manager's office and whoever else is back there. So his confidential secretary was not even in as of yet, though be it City Hall was open at 8:30. Now granted, the rec department and the city clerk's office were also closed, but I don't expect them to be open till later. And besides that, our city clerk works hard and she does her job essentially. So yeah. So, in rec department, I understand why he's not, there the hours that City Hall is open. It makes sense. Hey everyone, I am sitting here in front of the Riverview Police Department. I'm not stalking the place. It's absolutely 100% legal to record on public property, so get a clue of the law before you comment. As I was saying, I am in front of the Riverview Police Department currently, and I am here because of what happened this morning with Mr. Calipari and Mr. Calipari and their dogs. 2 officers were sent to my house. That'd be Officers Jonathan Garcia and Officer Lane, who were sent there, who proceeded to not even talk to Mr. Calipari about any of this, which doesn't surprise me. And I did not request that they be sent to my house either, and this would be in deference to Chief Allen and his comments, or not his comments, I'm sorry, I'm getting a little bit tired. My email to him about not sending police officers to my house any longer, unless I was under arrest, which he actually has sent them now 3 different times, and it's been very unproductive. At least Officer Garcia knew better than to bang on my door this time, but he should have, or not should have, he ought to have taken his sunglasses off. He talked about how sunny it was, and he was standing right there in the shade, which was about as dumb as Officer Lane shining a light in my house trying to find my address. So, go figure on that. But that's the kind of police department that exists in this city, for sure. And I'm sure, Swayze, that the police department's already very much aware that I'm recording them. I'm sure they've been told by at least one person. They ought not be surprised by this. And frankly, they don't care. As long as they get paid for sitting there doing nothing, they really don't care. They don't care about doing their job, most of them, and there are only about 5 of them that do. And I've already mentioned them. I'm not going to repeat that again. I'll save something for the first part of the video when it gets uploaded. But it's just really, really something, for sure. Well, you know what? Lying isn't any good either, Swayze. And I thought I put you in timeout, but you are now. So think about that the next time you want to lie and play your little games. We don't do that on my channel. Just so you know. Any more so than we disrespect anybody. And if the message isn't loud and clear, it's going to be one of these days. Otherwise, I'll be putting a lot of people in timeout and sending them to their rooms. Or their mother's basements, whichever it may be. You want to try that again, Matt? I didn't think so. Hey everyone, I am in front of the Riverview police station where I've been now for just over an hour. I'll be here for about another 55 minutes or so. And as you can see, not one vehicle has moved, including the 3 patrol vehicles that are sitting there. There have been a couple of people to go in. There was a gentleman that came back, and I wonder if he went in to tell them that I'm sitting here recording them. But in any event, I really don't care. Let them come out. They're not going to because, for one, their chief isn't here. Their top lieutenant isn't here. And the person who is quote-unquote in charge is either out on patrol or he's inside hiding from me. And that's why the old man, the dispatcher O'Lear, who wanted to make comments about me earlier, he wouldn't repeat his comment, or actually comment, not comment. Well, he made more than one comment, but he talked about finding Jesus, but yet he was busy judging me. And if he knew anything about Jesus, he would know that it says in the Bible, "Judge not, lest ye be judged." So he kind of forgot about that one. I'm not going to, if I were to say what I think he is in regards to that, then I would be being judgmental. But I think anybody, who knows anything about the Bible knows what that is and what that is being. I mean, granted, none of us are perfect, but he's a lot more imperfect than a lot of us, for sure. And especially because this is Riverview and it's the police department. Excuse me, everyone. And we have another vehicle pulling up. Well, this ought to be interesting. This ought to be interesting. Like another vehicle that's pulling in. Yeah, it's the white truck again. Interesting. As you can see, he's pulled in behind me. Assuming it's a male, and I believe it is. I think it's that same guy as before, but we'll find out. Okay, well, whoever it was, he's taken off, so he, she, whoever it is. So my apologies. I'm not trying to sound sexist, but I have the feeling that not too many females do that kind of stuff. Probably a guy. Yeah, I guess he was looking for City Hall. Okay, that would make sense. For those of you just joining us, I'm in front of the Riverview Police Department, where earlier today, it's been a little bit repetitious. Earlier today, dispatcher alert, who's the older gentleman you have seen in the videos, and you'll see in this one, sent officers Garcia and Lane to my house without my knowledge or approval. And basically it solved nothing because they didn't go over to talk to Mr. Calipari, they only talked to me. So, and this all had to do with Mr. Calipari, or actually his wife, not doing anything about her dogs and getting them under control. And then as I pan over here, you'll see you still have three patrol vehicles who are sitting there, and theoretically, or not theoretically, but I'm assuming that either Sergeant Tom, who is in charge today, quote unquote, is either still hiding in the back or he is still on patrol. But considering this city is only 4.5 square miles, there's only so much area you can patrol. So if he is quote unquote patrolling, I'm sure he had to take a break from all his patrolling, which is really, really interesting and illustrates my point, I would say. So, excuse me, everyone, my hand's getting a little stiff. I'm going to switch hands. And I will be here for about the next 50 minutes or so, just under that. So we'll see what other exciting things happen. But notice no patrol vehicles have actually gone out anywhere. Presumably none to talk to Mr. Calipari. So if anybody's doing so, it's got to be by phone, which is I would say is the normal course of action for this department when they decide to do something. And I'm sure they're reading him the riot act about it. But bear in mind, there's another video where he dropped off his motorized raft and just left it there. And again, Officer Garcia did nothing about that, yet he made me move my vehicle for a similar instance, which is total discrimination. And will be a part of my complaint to Lieutenant Bemis when he returns. excuse me, I want to hit my seat belt. Trying to make sure I stay loose for the next 45 minutes or so. And by the way, this is already record territory. This is the longest video I've ever shot, surpassing the one I did last year that I mentioned earlier that involved Laura Lee, or James Carey and Laura Lee Barton. And here comes another vehicle now. So getting a little bit more action here, but like I said, for a city like this, it's about right for sure. And for those of you just joining us, I am in front of the Riverview Police Department. There is a gentleman that's already pulled up next to me and, as you heard, set his car alarm off for whatever reason. And now here comes another vehicle. It's pulling in. As I was saying, I was here early this morning confronting Dispatcher O'Leary and his comment about my mental health. He refused to repeat it in the video, or since this recording started. And he talked about me finding Jesus, but he didn't know anything about me, because if he did, he wouldn't have made the comment, basically. And besides that, it does say in the Bible, "Judge not, lest ye be judged." So who is he to judge me? And apparently he thinks he's entitled somehow, because a lot of the police department, if not the police department in its entirety, think they're entitled. But I'm going to pan over and show you once again, not one patrol vehicle is left, not one vehicle over there has left, and it makes sense because no shifts would be over yet, because shifts are generally from 7 a.m. to 7 p.m., or that would be day shift, and of course night shift, or evening shift, if you will, is from 7 p.m. to 7 a.m. approximately. But in any event, the Caliporis, and especially his wife, had sicked his dogs, or tried to sick the dogs on me. But the fence was there, but did not control them. And I said if they didn't do something about it, I'd call the SPCA and the Humane Society, which I will. There's no question about that. And since the police refused to do anything about that, that's what it's going to come down to. And I'm sure it's going to be part of a future speech in front of the city council. No doubt. No doubt. So then after that, I went to City Hall, and at that time, Mayor Swift's confidential secretary was not there, and actually the office was not open at all, which means he's not in, probably won't be in at all today because he's probably at home, I would imagine, if he's not vacationing. And the same with Mr. Dolbeck and the like, is, they're so hard working. Mr. Dolbeck is hard working, I will give him that, so I don't want to begrudge him a vacation, but when it comes to working hard for me, he doesn't. That's one thing I will say, he does not. Because he's under the influence of Swift, if you will. So go figure. But in any event, that will come back to bite him at some point in time, I'm sure, and probably sooner than he realizes. But that's a whole different set of videos for a whole different time. Oh, here comes another vehicle. Now the activity's starting to pick up a little bit here. You see, that's a pretty interesting vehicle. apparently he went in just to make a small comment about how I'm recording or the like, so that's kind of interesting. But whatever the case may be. For those of you just joined us, or who are just joining us, I am in front of the Riverview Police Station, where I will be for about the next 40 minutes. And as you can see, and I'm going to pan back around, not one of the patrol vehicles sitting on the side here has left. Now, that may be because there's no reason for them to, but more to the point, it's probably just them not doing their job. But there is one that is gone, and that is Sergeant Tomes, because he is quote-unquote on patrol, which he is making this a very lengthy patrol because he's either hiding in the station, or he hasn't been back in all this time. Probably because I did tell them I would record them. I'm going to have to start being a little more discreet and just show up without saying anything about it, especially if they're going to say what they're going to say, especially Dispatcher O'Lear, the older gentleman, wanting to make a comment over the phone to me, which is ridiculous. But that's okay, because Chief Allen heard that comment, and therefore it was recorded there. So he doesn't need to repeat it for video. It's already there on the audio. Although I'm sure Chief Allen will conveniently erase that portion of it. In any event, I'm not going to tolerate that kind of stuff from anybody. It was unprofessional and it's unwarranted. This department may not like me, but they're going to have to tolerate me, and I do expect them to do their job. And when it comes to the Caliporis controlling their animals, they better do their job. Otherwise, it's going to be a long, long road for them, particularly after Lieutenant Bemis and Lieutenant Merritt retire, because I'm not backing off. And if they think they're going to back me off, they're sadly mistaken. Very sadly mistaken. Well, in any event, after that, I went over to City Hall, and Mayor Swift's confidential secretary was not there. Matter of fact, the whole office was closed, and the community probably not going to get this right. The Community Development Center had just opened, and there's one more word to it. I'm not thinking of it right now. So, but and the city clerk had just showed up about the time I left, and the rec department was not open either. But not a lot of reason for the rec department to be open too many hours per day, I would say. So they don't see a whole lot of activity, to be sure. I'm gonna switch hands here. Be interesting to see for the remainder of this time how much activity there is here. There's already more than I kind of figured with the 5 people that have showed up, but then one return. I kind of wonder about some of the other ones because they were in there very briefly. So that's kind of interesting. And here comes another vehicle now as soon as I say that. Obviously, somebody's not happy with the department. Surprise, surprise. Just pinging over to his vehicle. Maybe that's the reason why right there he's not happy. Just never know. I mean, when police departments don't do their job, it's not just one person they piss off. It's a lot of people they piss off. For sure. So far that's 6 people that have shown up. That's actually more than I thought we're going to, especially at this time, especially given that it's the day before a holiday. Clouds are starting to get a little ominous. I wonder if it's not going to rain a little bit. That'll be interesting. That won't stop me from recording if it does. Now we have a 7th vehicle pulling up. Or actually 6, because one was here twice.
Excuse me. You know if I can just walk right up to it?
Yeah, you can go directly inside even.
Thank you.
You're welcome. And so, not everybody in the city's bad. Help people when you can, for sure. And to recap for everyone, I am in front of the Riverview Police Department where I'll be for about the next half hour or so. This was all precipitated by Officer Lear making a comment about me after he sent Officer Garcia, maybe Officer Jonathan Garcia and Officer Lane. If I knew her first name, I'd mention it, but she comes off as kind of gruff, but point is, I believe she was the officer that shined her light through the window of my door when she was looking for my address on September 13th, 2020, which says a lot about her, and she didn't deny that it was her. And Officer Garcia showed up with his sunglasses on and said it was sunny, yet he was standing in direct shade on my porch, which was interesting. But that's how they are, and Officer Garcia being a very discriminatory officer, and he's going to be what gets the city sued, especially since he refused to have Mr. Calipari move his motorized raft when he's made me have to move my vehicle. So, and I just saw something in the background. I wasn't able to capture. Oh, that's the city workers or something, I guess, or DT. Yeah, you can see they're going to go scoop some dirt, I would say. So they're doing that around here as well as my street. But in any event, here's somebody else on a bike. Oh, interesting. Anyway, as I was saying, the officers refused to talk to Mr. Calipari and absolutely did not. So I came down here. I confronted Dispatcher Lear because Sergeant Tome was apparently still out on patrol. I think now he's hiding in the back because no patrol, I don't think, would last this long. But that's the way it is when you have your chief on vacation. You don't have your top lieutenant who's there. So, it's really, really interesting to be sure. But I think before I end this video, I'm going to go back inside as well, as I have some parting words for them. And I'm going to give them something to think about, especially since tomorrow's a holiday, and Mr. Calipari particularly likes to act up on holidays. So I'm glad I was afforded the opportunity to do this. I don't usually have this kind of opportunity, but I'm very pleased that I am able to do this. This has been very enlightening for me, because a lot more people have come to this department than I would have realized. But as you see, you don't really see officers rushing out unless they're going through the back, of course, and I don't have access to it. So, and that could be. I know a lot of when they arrest somebody, they do the intake in the back. So, and the general public's not around there, and I don't want to interfere with the police department's job. Although, God forbid, they interfere with mine on a very regular basis, and don't give a crap about doing so. So, we'll just see. And as a matter of fact, I'm going to pan back around. Again, none of the vehicles have moved. Still have the 3 patrol vehicles there, so you haven't missed anything. It's been like that for the entire time I've been here, which has been over an hour and a half so far. Yeah, lightning, isn't it, Bryn? Or Brent, whichever it is. And that's the whole point of my channel. I want to bring people's attention to what's going on in the city, particularly the real issues that go on here. And, it may not be like it is where people are getting shot in the streets in major cities and that, and I'm not trying to make light of that, but for this city, this kind of stuff is a huge deal. And it's an even bigger deal when you have a police department that doesn't do its job, and when they outright refuse to do their job. And we're going to see about Dispatcher Lear, because he had said earlier he's not going to send any more patrol officers if I call. Well, that's fine. He doesn't care about that, but he's not going to send them to my house without running it by me first. And since he wants to say what he says about me and think it's going to stick, I'm going to make sure it doesn't.
All the way down. Oh yeah, yeah. Across the street right here. Go all the way down. That goes inside these. Go across the street. You should know the way from there. I love you too, baby. You're welcome.
And the two of them are going to take off. Apparently they were together, so that's about 8 people that have shown up in just over an hour and a half. I'm very surprised by that. Very surprised. I think out of all the ones I know about that I've heard, that was the most serious one. I can get into their business, but if you heard what you heard, that very interesting. Very interesting. Definitely the most serious of all things that I've heard so far. By far. those of you who are just joining us, I am in front of the Riverview police station. I'm going to pan over to the left. Not one vehicle has moved, and also not one has pulled back in. And I'm saying that because Sergeant Tome, who is in charge today, either has not come back or he came back and he's hiding in the back and parked his vehicle in the back, which is interesting because my understanding is that the patrol vehicles are supposed to all be parked on the side. But it would not surprise me if Sergeant wasn't in the mood to be recorded, and Dispatcher O'Leary is taking the heat for him. However, he made a comment about my mental health over the phone, which I'm going to confront Chief Allen about. However, Chief Allen is on vacation until Monday, as is and Lieutenant Bemis, who would be in charge, is not here. So, very interesting. Very interesting in that regard. But again, it's the day before the holiday, so I should have known the fireworks were going to go off, and you know what? By the time tomorrow or the weekend's over with, they may. But hopefully Lieutenant Merritt will be back here on Friday. That will help somewhat, but that doesn't do anything about tomorrow. But they step out of the line tomorrow, I may come right back here, and I may be back here for another 2-hour session. Who knows? Anything's possible, especially when you live in Riverview. This is well past record territory for length of time of video. We're getting towards about double the previous high of 50. I think it was 52 minutes and change, which was last year, which involved James Carey and Laura Lee Barton, my former neighbors who lived directly across the street from me. And that video is still uploaded for those of you who wish to see that. And I will be here for roughly another 20 minutes, and I'm debating whether or not I'm going to go inside, which I probably will before I leave, because I want to find out a couple of things that I'm not going to mention in case anybody from the police station is watching this, which I'm sure at least one of them has it on to monitor them, or monitor me monitoring them, and that's fine, because I'm monitoring them, monitoring me, monitoring them as well, and we can just keep going back and forth with this. But if they actually would do their job and go over to Mr. Calipori's house and talk to him about the incident I brought up originally, then everything would have been hunky-dory. And for those of you who are watching, if any of you have any questions about what led up, not just directly to this, but in summary over the years, I'll entertain those questions. Just try to keep it to the police department right now. I'm going to have a video, I'm going to have a live session where you'll be able to ask any question that's reasonable and respectful, and that'll be to commemorate the I'm trying to remember the 250th subscriber. I have not done that as of yet. I haven't had much time because I've been very busy. Obviously, when you have to monitor the police department and find out why they're not doing their job because they won't tell you, and then they're not doing their job on top of it, that's interesting. They'd rather be combative than helpful and productive. So I almost thought that was another vehicle pulling up. The wind kicked so hard that it was something. Probably the strongest gust. I believe that is the strongest gust we've had so far today that I've seen, heard, or maybe even felt. So. For those of you who are just joining us, I am in front of the Riverview Police Department where I'll be for about the next 10 minutes now. And I'm going to pan over. Not one vehicle has moved from there, and there are 3 patrol vehicles there. And Sergeant Tome has not emerged whatsoever, and Sergeant Tom's the one in charge of, well, what's basically becoming a circus. If he's inside the department, he's hiding out in the back, but I think we're going to find that out pretty soon. In any event, this all was started by the Caliporis, who thought, and especially Mrs. Calipori, who thought that not controlling her dogs would be a good idea. Perhaps she didn't know I was through the fence, but then again, you know, considering how much her husband spies on me, I would have thought she would have known I was there moving stuff. In any event, she did not control her dogs. That precipitated a call from me to the police department, which Sergeant Tom just conveniently happened to leave to be on the road. And of course, Lieutenant Bemis is still not here, and he's not been here for several weeks, and Chief Allen is on vacation until Monday, I believe it is. So I had a showdown with Dispatcher O'Lear, who's the older gentleman you've seen in the vehicle, in the videos. And he decided to make a comment that I challenged him to repeat when I started this recording session, and he refused to do so and played like he was stupid, which of course he's not, but it just shows how gutless certain people in the police department are. Anyway, getting back to it, he then at that time had sent Officer Jonathan Garcia and Officer Lane to my house, and Officer Garcia shows up with his sunglasses on. He doesn't do anything about any of my concerns, and they did not talk to Mr. Calipori about their dog. So I said, especially after Dispatcher O'Lear made the comment about my mental health, I said, okay, if your department doesn't want to do anything about the dogs, I'll take care of them, if it includes calling the ASPCA, the Humane Society. And I don't want to harm them, but if my life's in danger, I'm going to have to do something. So it just shows how much the police department does not want to do regarding this. So if they think I'm not serious, I'm very serious about it. And that's where we are currently with all of this, with about roughly about 8 minutes to go or so. The other thing is there have been about 8 people, including one person who was by here twice, which very much surprised me. There hasn't been anybody here in about 15 minutes or so, but 8 people for 2 hours, that's quite a bit for a day before a holiday, especially when you don't have the chief there or the top lieutenant. So, and the reason I say the top lieutenant is because he is the leader in seniority among everybody in the department, including Chief Allen himself. But just the same, he's about ready to retire, and even if he was here, he wouldn't do anything about Mr. Calipori. But it would have been interesting what would have happened with the video session. Patrick, if you listen to the recap on when it gets uploaded, you'll have your question answered. So maybe it's best to listen for a little bit before you ask a question like that. Just saying. Just had a glitch. First glitch, actually, in all this time, so not bad, considering, because the last time I shot a video here that I can think of with Lieutenant Brown, it came out very wonky. You're going to see that when I get finished editing it and have it uploaded, which I said to him I would before the next city council meeting. Of course, because the city council meeting did not take place on Monday, I put it back into private so I could finish editing it and get all the stuff that doesn't need to be in there out, which is not anything pertaining to the video. It's just the blurbs or the blurbs and all the other stuff that's my hand in front of the camera and the like. So in case anybody wants to accuse me of editing anything that's pertinent to the video, I never do. What you see is pretty much how it plays out. Just, certain hand movements or the like, or if there's something involving somebody else that's not a part of the video, I'll edit that out too. But I don't think I've ever really done that. And as I was saying earlier, there was a video where I was by here when I shot Lieutenant Bemis with recording, not with a gun, just so anybody knows. When I recorded him, and I realized the whole video was not about why I was there, so I did delete that out of respect for the gentleman's privacy. But we're under 5 minutes to go now, and again, it'd be shocking if anything else happened on there, but you never know. There could be some more activity here within that time. It'd be interesting to see what happens. I don't know if you can see it, but there's a bird right there, right just above my windshield there. You can see it on the ground. Not actually above my windshield, but now, this is the way it ought to be with the police department, or not with the police department, but with the city, where you have that little action. I mean, that would be reflective of a police department actually being good. But again, this department could be so much better because they're entirely overpaid and they really just don't do their jobs. And they don't care about doing their jobs because they get paid the same regardless of whether they do their jobs or not. But they're walking a slippery slope with that, because they're going to screw up one of these days and they may get themselves sued if they're not careful. And I could have sued this department 3, 4, 5 times by now, but elected not to. But next time they slip up, I'm very likely to sue. Now we're just under 2 minutes to go. So it's going to be interesting. I'm not going to mention what I'm going to do next because I have the feeling that somebody inside is watching this channel. Again, they're monitoring me, monitoring them, monitoring me. I mean, I really don't give a crap because I'm not the lawbreaker, but they need to really do their jobs, and that's just the way it is. And they don't, and they know it. So. Okay, I suspect we're about ready to wind this down now. Okay. One more thing to do, though, before I end the video. And I will have to do some editing after this. I held the phone a little bit too long. Wow, my fingers are numb. You realize it. You still hiding, eh? They screw up, I'll be back tomorrow. They screw up today, I'll be back today. There you have it. Still, either still on patrol or he's still hiding. But in any event, I'll make good on what I said as it pertains to the Caliporis. And I think while I'm at it, you know what? Hang on a sec. Yeah, you know what? Tempting to go inside City Hall, but I think yeah, it's a little too obvious. So, and I don't think Mayor Swift's there anyway, and his secretary's probably not there. So, in any event, take care, everyone, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye for now.